Annamaria, we are here today because we're going to talk about Ayurveda, and we're going to talk about your workshop that's coming up at the end of February, but it's going to be a season of 3. So once a month, February, March, and April.
Yep.
But a lot of people don't know what Ayurveda is. So you and I had discussed that it might be really nice to just have a little interview about Ayurveda, and you can talk to people about what that is. And if people have any questions, you can definitely write it in the comments. I'll take a little look, and we can write it later. We're both drinking tea. I hope
We
you all
are.
tea. Drinking, Annamaria.
I'm drinking an Ayurvedic tea, actually. It's
Tell
called
us
CCF tea. So it's 3 ingredients: coriander, cumin, and fennel. And there are different ways that you can make it, but it's basically 1/3 parts of each. And the way that I do it is I sort of make it in batches. So I make a big batch of it and I store it. And then, I can just sort of get 1 spoon of it and brew it in about 2 cups water. And just depending on how strong or how light you like it, you can brew for 5 or 10 minutes. But it's a really beautiful tea. It's one that, you can drink every day, all day. It's really good to keep us hydrated. It helps with any bloating or, menstrual cramps or anything like that. It also helps to stimulate the appetite. So it's a really beautiful tea. It's really great for digestion. It just keeps everything flowing in the body. So I love to recommend it to friends and loved ones. I love to gift it, and I also love to drink it every day. It's really great.
And I think this is like a nice segue into like what is Ayurveda in terms of like why those ingredients in the tea did you choose? Because from my basic knowledge of Ayurveda is we're working with the seasons and to balance our body with the seasons. So each season could have a different spice, a different tea, a different food that you're balancing your body with. So it might be nice to just start with talking about what is Ayurveda.
Definitely. Yeah. So Ayurveda is the sister science of yoga. It's also known as the science of life. It's actually a 5,000-year-old healing system, and it's rooted in ancient India. And Ayurveda is really practical. It really provides just some basic principles and guidelines by which we can live our lives, food, sort of like sleep and eating habits, and also other ways that we can sort of properly use our senses in order to come into a state of balance and harmony. The word that's used in Ayurveda, or sort of in Ayurveda, and its deepest gold, is called swastha, and that is also translated into health. So swastha, the essence of that word, it's a Sanskrit word, and the essence of it is to be situated in the self. And so in Ayurveda, we look at health from a holistic perspective. So health is not the absence of dis-ease, as we often see. We maybe talk about symptoms or not feeling well. So it's not the absence of dis-ease. What it is when we have sort of our whole self, the body, the mind, the senses, and really the soul in a place, where we can feel vibrant, where we can, move towards health and well-being. So it takes account sort of, again, this whole of who we truly are, right? Which is made up of not just sort of this gross body, but also the more subtle levels of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Agni, the fire, the digestive Ayurveda is a lot about making sure that your digestive tract is working, and I was thinking about that today, taking yoga this morning, which I know is part of the Ayurvedic practice as well. And it's just amazing the different ways that you feel like you're cleaning without actually brushing your teeth, necessarily, like an energetic cleaning, cleaning the organs or cleaning through food. Ayurveda for me was like the first time to do a cleanse through healthy eating. So not having to do juices or stop. Not that if anyone has done those and it's worked for you, fantastic, but I would get so hungry because I'm a dancer. And so like how to do a healthy cleanse and clean the body and restart in a way that you're still feeding the body as well. And that was kind of profound, you know.
Definitely. Yeah, and I love this. I think you're bringing up a few pretty key and essential points for Ayurveda. So definitely digestion is at the center of Ayurveda. So the Agni, also known as the digestive fire, really determines the state of our health and the state of our well-being. And in Ayurveda, it's said that 80% of all illnesses can be reverted back to our gut and to our Agni, or our digestive tract, or digestive health. So in Ayurveda, it's also believed that the way that we digest our food, that food is an experience in and of itself. And so the way that we take in our nutrients, the way that we digest our food, is also parallels the way that we digest our experiences in life. So these two things, they come together. So yeah, and Ayurveda and yoga are meant to be practiced together, which is why they're sisters. They're meant to go hand in hand, because while yoga is, addresses sort of this more subtle layer, right? Where we're using movement and we're using breath techniques and to move the channels of the body. Ayurveda is also thinking about, it's about sort of the practical day-to-day implementation of, how do I take care of myself? And in yoga, I'm sort of making this space, and it's the spiritual science, right, of sort of this tradition. And Ayurveda is, again, sort of more this medical science, the science of life of, well, how do I sort of, implement a lifestyle or live a lifestyle that really supports my whole well-being.
Right. And I like how you said, like, did you say digest your life or something?
Digest your experiences.
Digest your experiences, right? Like, TV, even, like, we eat that, right? That goes in, we digest that. And that's been like a big thing also during the pandemic of like, what am I digesting during this time? Either food, information, movement, work, and how is that, like, what's happening with that? Are some things digesting? Do some things get like really constipated, just like
totally.
In that literal sense, just like,
totally.
Not digesting it properly. But I think so then I wonder, because you mentioned this, like Ayurveda is about having like a daily practice. And I know that that's something in your workshops that you're going to want to give to people as like, this can be simple. This can be a daily practice. We've broken the workshops into, we're going to make a tea together for those of you.
We're going to make the CCF tea.
Yeah.
So you can have it every day.
Exactly. We're going to make a tea. The second one, we're going to talk about, practice, like the actual daily practices, like tongue scraping and massage and other things. And the third one is movement, if I'm remembering them all correctly. So if you could talk, a little bit about daily practice and how Ayurveda approaches like daily practice.
Yeah, so in Ayurveda, it's emphasized really, so Ayurveda is really about doing, to have in these sessions that we'll be doing together, I will be offering information about theory and, sort of where this wisdom, where this knowledge comes from. But essentially, Ayurveda is really in the doing. And what I learned from my teachers is that Ayurveda is about the practice, right? So we can have the knowledge, but what we do with that knowledge is really what will help our lifestyle. And so Ayurveda is as simple in terms of our, practices and daily routines. It can be something as simple as drinking a warm glass of water each morning with lime, to help the digestion. Again, the digestion, as we were talking about before, is central. So how do I start my day? How do I start to, ignite my digestion, clean out the digestive tract so I can make room and space, not only for the food and the nourishment that I'm receiving, but also for my daily life experience. Another, really wonderful practice, as you were explaining before, is tongue scraping. So, when we wake up in the morning, oftentimes, if we're sort of looking in our mouths and paying attention to what's going on, we'll see that there's a type of coating on the tongue. And that coating actually means something. And so when we use a tongue scraper, what we do is, of course, we're getting rid of that coating, but we're also getting rid of toxins that build up overnight. And there are also toxins that, are coming out on the tongue, whether it's from the food that we're eating or, our external environment or even stress, right? That like we're processing overnight as we're sleeping. When we start to get rid of those toxins, and on the tongue, there are tons of nerve endings as well. And so the tongue is also the place where we, again, start to, activate the digestive tract and activate the digestion. Another practice that we'll be talking about in that second workshop on, daily practices and routines is this beautiful practice that I personally love. It's called Abhyanga. And so it's a self-massage. And, I was thinking this morning about how in the West, oftentimes we think of self-care as like having to go out and spend hundreds of dollars, right? Whether it's, on a massage or whatever, on a spa or whatever sort of upscale thing, we like to do to take care or nourish ourselves. And really, self-care practice, when we can gift that to ourselves, it's sort of a thing that I think it's so valuable, right? That really it's priceless. You can't really put a number on it. And so Abhyanga, also known as self-oil massage, is a beautiful practice where we use different oils depending on the season. And, it can be a sesame oil. So for example, right now we're in the depths of winter. We're in Kapha season. So we'll use a sesame oil, a warm sesame oil, to just give ourselves a really nourishing massage. And so touch is a beautiful way to help ground the body, to help stabilize the nervous system, to help activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is that comforting, that soothing part of our nervous system. But touch is also, it's also a love language. And so it's giving ourselves a little bit of, self-love. And reminding ourselves that when we take that time to nourish, which I think really is at the essence of Ayurveda, when we take that time for ourselves, whether it's 5 or 10 minutes a day to fill up our cup, we can move through life in a way where we are full and have something to offer others. We can be a vehicle. We can be a vehicle of service. We can be a vehicle of love. And ultimately, we each have a purpose in this world. And so in order to really step into our purpose and fulfill what we're meant to be doing here, we at least in my experience, I've found that when I come from a place where I'm full because I've taken care of myself, then I have way more to give others. It's the same like the analogy that they use on the airplanes, right? Put on your mask, your oxygen mask first, so that you have the ability to help other people. I think Ayurveda really at its essence is that, let's give ourselves the nourishment first so that we can go out into the world and serve, from a place where we have a lot to give.
Yeah, and it sounds, as I'm hearing you speak, it also sounds like a listening practice. So as you're doing these actions of making yourself a tea, of doing a self-massage, of tongue scraping, of movement, whichever it is, that because you're taking a time to do these rituals, like finding what daily ritual works for you that day or that week or that month, that you're also tapping into a listening and being like, what is my body saying to me? What do I need to listen to through the state of doing? If Ayurveda is a doing practice, which can be sometimes we're in that fight or flight, like go, 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 do, do, do. Well, within the doing practice, you then have these listening practices, these rituals in which actually you have to stop. And in the doing, you have to take time to make your tea. And what do you think about when you're making your tea? And what do you think about when you're tongue scraping? And what do you think about when you're cooking food? Or what do you think about when, you know what I mean? It just sat when you were talking, I was like, oh, this is such a listening practice. And also, I wonder if you could speak a little bit to the seasons, because it's so important with Ayurveda. And I think something that's been coming up a lot in my movement practice is that every day is so different. And that's something that I thought worked yesterday, and I try it again because I'm like, that worked, yes. And then it just doesn't the next day, you know? And so the constant change that we need to pay attention to, because things shift or our bodies shift or we need something. And that's in Ayurveda, I think, because of the season changes. And so we have to change. We must experience change within the season. It's so hard as humans to change. But I'm so excited just talking to you about it. But anyways, if you could speak to the seasons and kind of the change that we have to do, you know, with the seasons.
Definitely. I think you bring up, you know, such a wonderful point, because we are constantly living in change, right? And so in Ayurveda, we also look at balance as a dynamic state that we're constantly moving towards and making adjustments along the way to get there. So, you know, balance and harmony. So I'll give you a really specific example. So I think it was maybe yesterday or Friday in New York, you know, it was warm and it was beautiful, and, you know, it was mild and the sun was out and the snow was melting. And I know, you know, for at least the folks I connected with on that day, people were feeling more hopeful that like spring is around the corner and like things are going to start to bloom.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And then today we go out, you know, and there's a lot of snow and it's white everywhere, and, you know, it sort of feels it's cold. And so balance is going to look really different today than it did on Friday, right? So in Ayurveda, what's so special is that we look at balance by looking at qualities. So what I mean by that is there are qualities in Ayurveda that really allow us to find sort of that place that feels right. So for example, when I'm looking at, let's say, you know, it's cold out and I come home and I drink something cold. What is that going to do? That's only going to increase my cold, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas it's cold out and I come home and I drink something warm, what am I doing? I'm moving towards a state of balance, right? So there's one principle that is central to Ayurveda: like increases like and opposites balance. And so what we look at when we're trying to find that that place of harmony is we look at the quality, right? It's not, nothing is ever good or bad. It's how does it make me feel, right? So if there's a specific quality, so for example, you know, in the cold, maybe our skin tends to get really dry and cracked, right? Between the heat that is pumped in our apartments and, you know, the blistering cold.
Girl, it's hot.
Yeah. And then the blistering cold we feel outside, what happens? The skin starts to dry up, right? So when we're looking at that as a quality, right? The quality of dryness. Well, what do I need to do to move towards balance? It's probably, you know, something oily, right, is going to bring moisture to my body. So an abhyanga would help, right, to help nourish the skin. So, you know, these, there are 20 qualities, and, you know, we'll talk about this sort of in the workshops. But when we start to look at that, we also can become more mindful about, you know, what is the specific imbalance that's happening, and, you know, what is the opposite quality that I need to bring balance into my life. And so This season specifically, we're in the depths of winter, sort of on the brink, even though it may not feel like it, but Friday definitely felt like it, on the brink of, moving, transitioning into spring. Um, there's a quality, so this is what's called Kapha season. And in Ayurveda really focuses on the five elements. So the five elements are air, ether, fire, water, and earth. And these are the basic building blocks of life. So we find these five elements within our own individual selves, but we also find them in every living thing and also in matter. And so all of matter has a combination of these five elements in different proportions. And individually, as unique persons, we also have a unique combination as well, which gives rise to our constitutions, also known as our doshas. And so Kapha is the mix between earth and water. So in Kapha, what we find, we start to find when we start to move towards the spring, we find the thawing, right? Right now, we can feel some of it. We can feel, the water, the dampness, right? The moisture. We may also, at this point in the season, given sort of that we're still a little bit in hibernation, we may also be feeling the heaviness of the season, just having been indoors, for a few months now. So what Ayurveda helps us do is to look at, okay, what are the qualities that I'm experiencing right now, right? And then how can I use that quality to inform what will help me come into a state of balance? And so again, seeing every day, even in the moment to moment, right, as an opportunity to sort of practice these different principles.
Yeah, and I'm also, as you're talking, I'm thinking about like state of balance as we're not trying to achieve perfection, nor are you trying to achieve a state of balance and it's over, you're balanced, and that what's so beautiful about Ayurveda and what you're talking about as well is like, it's really more about the path, the journey to that balance, the discoveries along the way, that you're through the doing, through the rituals, and even that balance isn't this like harmony of like positive and positive, that you actually might need to experience something uncomfortable to come into balance, like oregano oil. It's like, oh my gosh, but sometimes I need to do it, so sometimes I know I need to do it.
Totally.
When I'm sick or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's sometimes these like uncomfortable moments, and the uncomfortable moments is what has you go search for something that will help you balance. And so it's the hardest lesson for me is this kind of not finding an end goal, really, of like trying to make it something that's always moving, that's always an exploration, trying not to just get to that end line, but seeing what the path is along the way. And that balance probably means something completely different than what I know it to be. So that's exciting, that's an exciting.
And it'll be different for everyone, right?
Totally.
According to even our own, constitution, or just the way that we're made naturally, right? What balance means for you may be really different for me. And so this was something else that my teachers really actually love to say is, try it on for size and see if it fits you, see if you like it, and the other thing that I wanted to mention is, there are a lot of options in Ayurveda, right? And I know when I came into the practice, I have to be honest, I was a little overwhelmed because there was so much that, there's so much that you can learn and study, but there's also so much that we can practice. But the really wonderful thing is that we get to pick and choose what serves our life, and what can actually work to uplift us. And we can try it on and see, I like this and I'm going to keep this and I'm going to run with it, and there may be other practices that maybe don't make me feel aligned or balanced. And so I'm going to scrap it and not have to use it and not feel obligated to use it. but ultimately, I think there's sort of a real pleasure can come from, taking care of ourselves, and from implementing some of these sort of daily practices to find that, that sense of well-being, that sense of balance, which, as you said, it'll change. It'll change from day to day, even from moment to moment, because it's not just our environment externally that's affecting us. It's also internally, how am I feeling, and what am I thinking, and sort of where am I at any sort of moment in time.
Yeah, and so I guess in relation, as we're gonna start to close it up, but I want to ask you, because each workshop so this next one is February 21st. Did I get that right? On a Sunday.
Yeah, February 21st from
we'll
5
be in the
to
kitchen.
6:15. Yep, we will be.
So because in this world where we're doing a lot more Zoom, you and I had talked about like trying to make these workshops both educational, but so that it's not too heady and overwhelming, that we're actually going to do some of the practices, like give ourselves massage for the second workshop in March, make a tea and drink it together, do a yoga practice together. And so I'm curious how you feel, if you've thought at all about like how this actually Zoom platform, in a maybe positive and negative way, but like how it's going to be different than in person, but actually might be advantageous in a way. Like I was thinking, oh, well, we get to all be in our kitchens and make tea, and that's so great because at the studio we can't make our own tea. It would have already been made and then we would have served it. So yeah, I'm curious to hear you talk about how the doing this online is going to be different for you and for your students.
Definitely. Yeah. So I think it's going back to the earlier point that Ayurveda is in the doing and it's in the practice. And, what I'm here to do is really just to serve as a guide, and to offer some wisdom that my own teachers have passed down to me. But ultimately, Ayurveda is a practice of actually going in there and doing it and living it and embodying it. And so the really special thing, which, you've alluded to, is we're going to be in the comfort of our own homes. And we're also going to be practicing Ayurveda in the comfort of our own homes on the day-to-day, if we choose, to start to implement some of these practices in our day-to-day. So in our first workshop, we'll be talking about foods, and nourishing foods, and why the digestion is so important in Ayurveda. And we're gonna make stewed apples together, which is a super simple recipe.
I forgot about that.
It's a super simple recipe with some beautiful spices, and we'll talk about why those certain spices are used according to the time of season. And we'll be making coriander, cumin, and fennel tea, which is also very easy and simple, and something that we can do on the day-to-day. And then for the second session in March, we'll be learning about self-care practices, and being in the comfort of our own homes mean that, we can actually do it right then and there together and look at each other and, create that space. For me, it's also really about creating that space of community and connection, because Ayurveda is also about that. It's about, living in a community of individuals who, support one another and who care about each other, and who want to live connected, more connected, to ourselves, more connected to one another, and ultimately really just trying to each move towards, a greater sense of well-being to serve the world from that place. And then our last session in April, we'll be doing a movement practice, or we'll be doing, yoga postures, but I'll also be offering some really invigorating breath techniques, because by that time, we'll be sort of, in later Kapha, where we'll start. And the really great thing too is we've spaced these out so that you can take this stuff home, practice it at home, and see how it goes, you
Right.
know, and it'll be like a chance for us to check back in and, you know, see how it went and share our experiences. And while I, of course, encourage folks who want to join to take all three, you don't have to take all three. You know, if there's one that really calls to you, please sign up for it. You know, I would love to see all of you and have you participate. But again, ultimately, Ayurveda is in the doing. So we're going to be doing this stuff together, and we're going to make it really great as part of a bigger community.
Yeah, and also what's so great about all these practices is they're not expensive. And, you know, we experience that health, especially in the US where healthcare is not a part of something you should just have. Ayurveda, you know, it's even expensive to buy the good organic whatever at the market. So there's something also about Ayurveda and how we've also set it up where it's like, go buy these couple spices. Apples aren't super expensive. Hot water with lime, not expensive. And so that there are healthy things that one can find on a tight budget, whether you have a little bit. If you have money right now, it's kind of like great. Then you can go buy all the foods that you need to buy. If you can only pick and choose, well, the one thing that was working really well for you, then you can kind of stick with that. So I've also found that to be really great about Ayurveda, that it really is accessible. It like really is an accessible form of health that everyone can kind of tap into, which I also really like about that. And just to say, because I'm so excited, like 3 months from now, that we will be doing a Kitchery cleanse
We will.
April. Because I was like, Annamaria, we just have to go. We got to go for it. I want to do this cleanse. I need a cleanse. I need a guide.
We're doing it.
I need a shaman. Like, if you could just be it, you know, during the week, that would be great. So we're going to do, you know, this is all actually leading up well, it's not leading up to, but it's little introductions. And then if really together as whoever joins as a group wants to do I think we said, is it a 5-day,
1 week, yeah,
or 1 week,
yep.
Kitchery cleanse, which Kitchery is a rice dish
And dal, yep,
and dal.
yeah.
That's something that we'll be doing in a couple months of now, which I'm just like so stoked to do.
Yeah, and cleanses are great to do for the transition of seasons, you know.
Totally.
So we'll definitely we'll get there in terms of, you know, these I think sessions are meant to really serve as those building blocks and leading up to this cleanse that hopefully, you know, you all will be able to join. But it's also a great opportunity to just give our systems a little bit of a break, you know, and we can really see. It'll be uncomfortable at some points, like you were mentioning earlier, right? Where sometimes, you know, to come into a state of balance
during that week.
right? But ultimately, it's like, you know, we can get to this place of, wow, I feel lighter, you know, I feel clear, I feel different, which is, sustaining for our health and well-being.
So people can sign up for this workshop through Second Story, through Mind Body. If you have any questions whatsoever, you can message me. I'll send it straight to Annamaria to answer any of your questions. If money is an issue and you really want to take this and it feels not possible, please don't hesitate to email me. We'll figure it out because we just want you to take and learn, and you're welcome. So anything else?
I'm so excited, and really grateful for this community. I'm just so deeply grateful for the opportunity, you know, to be with you all and to be able to serve in this way. And I'm excited that we all get to walk on this journey together. And again, as Kay mentioned, you know, if you have any questions, if you want to connect, you know, I'm always also happy to answer questions, so feel free to DM me and let me know.
Yeah, and thank
you so much, Kay, for the opportunity.
We got a testimonial. Christina says that a lot came up during these cleanses where we removed blockages on many levels. Very true. Thanks for bringing that up. So true. Well, Annamaria, thank you. Thank you for everyone who listened. Yeah.
Thank you all for tuning in.
On YouTube, if you want to listen to it again or send to a friend who you might think is interested in taking the workshop and might want to hear a little bit more about it. But Have a great
Yeah, come and
Sunday.
try it out. You know, we're
Yay!
going to try it and see what happens. So